this is Jasmine, and for this sketchbook tour video, I'm going to talk about the Sketchbook Slam, my thoughts, how far I made it, and whether or not I recommend the challenge. But I'm also going to talk a little about what I've been up to lately, because I got super busy and I haven't posted in a while. For those of you that may be unfamiliar, the Sketchbook Slam is a challenge in which you complete 600 pages of a sketchbook in a single month. I'll put a link to the original creators video below. So first off, spoiler alert, I didn't finish the challenge. I started off really strong, and I believe that drawing every day is a very good habit to get into, but I found that I quickly fell behind by 20 pages or so, which was no big deal at the time. But shortly after I began the challenge, I got a full-time job and I had to stay at my parents' house until I was able to rent a house closer to work. During all of this craziness, the Sketchbook Slam was all but forgotten about, as it was very difficult to find enough motivation to dedicate my free hours to only sketching. Looking back on this challenge now, after settling into my new job and new house, my general takeaway is that this challenge is far too much for someone that works full time unless you stick entirely to gesture type drawings, which would be very helpful, but not what most people would want to do when taking on an art challenge, especially if they plan on filming it. I could easily have filled the entire book with 30-second gestures, but that's not really what I want out of my sketchbooks. A few pages here and there, but not the entire thing. So if you have a lot of free time on your hands or plan on doing primarily gesture quick sketching, this challenge is definitely doable, although it's still a lot of stress. But if you have a full-time job, school, or other commitment, it's extremely difficult. That being said, it's still a great idea to sketch daily, but I wouldn't personally recommend doing this. If you want to challenge yourself with things like studies and thoughtful sketches, I think that something like 100 pages in a month would be very reasonable. Now, did I personally enjoy this challenge? Well, not really. I found myself often too uninspired after a long stretch of sketches, and when I did get inspired, I wanted to create a full piece, but I felt obligated to continue with quick sketches instead, actually hindering my productivity. But what I did find most useful was practicing outside of my comfort zone, such as studying horses and architecture. So if I were to try something like this again, I would focus on a few sketches a day in areas that I would like to improve and not worry so much about page counts. So that's all I had to say on the challenge itself. I'll spend the rest of the video talking about the work in this book, which I still plan on finishing, so I'll do a part 2 sketchbook tour of this at some point. So here I'm still working on a lot of studies. We have a horse and a bat, but I move into things more from my imagination. Here are lizards that I created for my own world called Seraph, and I really love this drawing of this boat that I did from a photograph of Viking boats, and I have an illustration idea for that for later on. And also just trying to do more architecture, but I really struggle. Here you can see winging perspective is the worst, because, yeah, without perspective lines, architecture is very difficult for me. Here's a sheet where I tried to do expressions for some characters I have for a comic that I'm working on, a graphic novel, comic, whatever you want to call it. And I'm very excited about this. It's also set in my own fantasy world, Seraph. I'm not necessarily happy with these expressions, though. I'm still working on the character design. A bunch of goofy kitties, that's what I kind of fill things up with when I can't think of anything. And some more full illustration ideas on the other side. Here you can really tell the difference between when I am working from my imagination versus when I am working from photo reference. So the cats on the one side were not photo reference, the dog, the rat, and the person on the other side were. These were also photo reference, although not very good. And now I start in with my gestures. So I have a few pages of 30-second gestures, and then it goes on to 60-second gestures here. And I follow that up with 90-second gestures. And these pages are fairly boring, but they were extremely useful. Here we have a real-life drawing of my cat, and another concept sketch of one of my creatures that I'm working on, and another illustration idea. At this point in time, I have gone from using reference to just doodling and sketching straight out of my head. This is a character of mine from Final Fantasy 14, and then I started using colored mechanical pencils, and that was fun. So I went on to using colored pen, and that's what I continued using for quite a while. I separated my gesture drawings into different colors. It was just something to revitalize my art a little bit. I was in a slump. I was struggling to enjoy actually drawing in the sketchbook at this point in time. Here again, one of my Final Fantasy 14 characters, some of my original characters over here, and just some random girl on some random creature, another random girl with a random creature, my cat on a chair. We have a rust monster up here, and I really enjoy this sketch of this giant skull. I also really like the way I started to use the colored pen and then go over it with my black pen. I just think that that looked really neat. At this point in time, I was playing Final Fantasy 14, so I was drawing some of the plants from there and then some more concept sketches. I went back to drawing some studies, but not for very long. And then we leave off with a couple pages of commission work that I was doing at the time. And that's it. I made it to page 91, although there's a blank page there at the end, so technically I made it to page 90. And all in all, I think I did all right, especially considering that I did some of this work even after I had gotten a full-time job. I still tried to get some sketching in, and as long as you sketch every day or try and sketch a little bit throughout your week, then you're definitely going to see a lot of improvement. So I'll leave off with again showing my favorite page in the entire sketchbook, which is these writing lizards that I drew concepts for. I really love this page. And yeah, so that is how far I made it. That is my entire opinions and thoughts on the Sketchbook Slam challenge. And if you like the art that you see here and you're interested in some of my more detailed illustrations or tutorials or even sometimes crafts, check out the rest of my channel and you can subscribe. And I'll be posting more really soon. Thanks for stopping by.